our next guest is going to kind of maybe help us in that regard too. I know David Younger has been a guest on a past radio show. He's a psychologist and mindfulness meditation teacher. We're going to talk to him next here, and we're definitely going to key in with David a little bit on coping and mindfulness practice. And he joins us now. Hello, how are you doing, sir?
Good. How are you, Tim?
I'm doing well. I'm doing very well. It's been a while since you and I have chatted.
Yeah, about a year.
So how have you been during this 2020?
Well, it's been a crazy year, for sure. Um, I'm relieved that it's coming to a close. We've been hanging in there and basically quarantining since the beginning of March with my family. My kids have been doing school online, which is challenging, but we've been surfing the waves. And I just finished the clinical trial for the Fulcrum clinical trial.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I've had to drive back and forth to Kansas from Austin a couple times.
How long is that ride?
12 hours.
How many times? I'm asking this because I'm kind of using you as the commitment level that the FSHD community has. So that's 12 hours. How many times have you had to make that trip?
So I flew there before pre-COVID, like 4 times, and then I've driven there twice. Stopped halfway in Oklahoma City. Yeah, it's exhausting, but
yeah, I don't know if I've driven that far ever. That's a long journey, and it does speak to even what we were talking about with Michelle and other representatives from Fulcrum, talking about that relentlessness that the patients have, this don't quit attitude. Like even through COVID, they still showed up. And you're one of those people. They're talking about you, David.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there was definitely, especially in the beginning with COVID, when there's so much uncertainty. It was like, well, am I going to be able to go? What's going to happen with the study? And just went through this sort of a couple weeks of just of that, just not knowing. And then I just had this resolve, like, I'm going. Just I don't care. Like, I'm going no matter what. I'm doing this. And it felt really good. I basically asked myself, how would I feel, not just for myself, but it's a huge responsibility for all of the thousands of people that we are hoping that something is going to happen here, to be participating in this. Like, how would I feel about myself if I just said, well, I'm not going to do it? And I said, I'd rather take the risk.
Yeah, it's something that you made the commitment and you carried it through. There's some though that would have been reluctant to do so. So for me, I mean, I'm really grateful that you did, because it kind of helps the community as a whole for sure. But those that have FSHD, we're already coping and trying to deal with that, and then you add COVID on top. So in your line of work, has this been difficult to help people, cope and deal with what's happening, not just the shared what's happening, but also then, partner that with the individual struggles of FSHD?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's difficult now in my therapy practice. I do have a couple of people with FSHD, some other people with other types of disabilities, and then just all sorts of other people who don't have disabilities. And
Sure.
So I've been dealing with different iterations of what it has been like, the difficulties involved in just coping with COVID. And in some ways, look, my practice was online before COVID.
Right.
And a big part of that is having FSHD, having the mobility limitations, and being able to design my life and work around my physical needs. and taking care of myself. In some ways, I was better prepared for COVID than a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a combination of having the mobility limitations and being an introvert that actually my life has probably changed less than, you know, the lives of a lot of other people.
Right.
Um, so that's been something, but still there are the limitations in terms of seeing family and going on a vacation, going to restaurants, um, and obviously the kids being at school. Um,
Yeah, that
it's
kind of adds another
definitely,
element.
yeah, it forces me to also, my work forces me to um, not be a hypocrite. That's something I take really seriously. So if I'm talking to people about practicing mindfulness, about you know, practicing acceptance of this is what's happening right now, and how do I choose to relate to what's happening?
Yeah.
Um, I feel like if I'm not practicing that myself, then I'm just going to be a pretty bad. Uh, so my work really helps me to like stay honest about my own practice,
Mm.
which is
Yeah, that
incredibly imperfect.
yeah, it is. And fortunate for you, yeah, that it sounds like that your work has blended well with this COVID crisis for sure.
Yeah.
And of course that helps people cope with the COVID crisis, that you're able to do that and um not be, you know, separated from those that you've been helping because you've already been doing it virtually. So it's not much of a change. I can see that. But the the issues I guess that I've seen from either my end, it's either, you know, joblessness or your kids are now at home all the time. Um, and I've heard that, you know, Jen Eggert has talked to us a little bit on the FSHD radio shows in the past about mindfulness and mindfulness practice. Are you finding though that it's harder to continue that practice with so many other distractions around?
Um, I don't think it's harder for me because I feel so committed to it because um, honestly, it's helped me so much over
Yeah.
the years. And I meditate for an hour every day. It's just something that I don't question, am I going to meditate today? I've seen and felt and experienced how deeply beneficial it is for me that it's not a luxury. And if anything, what's happened, it's helped me deal with all the challenges of COVID. And I have also been teaching. I just recently taught an introduction to mindfulness and meditation course
Mhm.
and a half-day workshop, um, and it was so gratifying to be able to do that too.
Well, and you've also joined, you also started up the FSHD Society's mental health and wellness group.
Yes.
There's a big support system there. What kind of or what was the seeds that were planted to start that group, and when was it started?
It was started, uh, I think it was around maybe in the summer or the spring. I don't remember exactly. And I mean, June, the amazing June, reached out to me to ask me if I'd be interested. And it's been, June has been there in the meetings, in all the meetings, participating and taking notes and coming up with ideas, and Aura Pilatensky and Jen Eggert and Kent Drescher. And it's been awesome. We've been meeting once a month. And then we started these monthly, every second Monday at 4 o'clock Central is a meeting, an open meeting for the community. And we've had some meetings which have been thematic. So we've discussed articles that June sent out in an email to everyone who wanted to attend by a couple of different disability rights people. The next meeting in December is going to be about relationships,
Okay.
and it's it's really just a place like you can attend if you didn't read the article. I mean, It doesn't matter. You can talk and share as much as you want, or you can just listen. Um, and it's very inclusive and open and organic and community oriented. And it's just the theme may be about relationships, but that doesn't mean that we don't go into other areas and people talking about adaptations and devices that they use. And it's just about, it's really community building. And that's such an integral part of wellness is not feeling alone and connecting with others who are dealing with similar issues.
Yeah, I think connection is really key, isn't it? I mean, the mental side of this can be daunting, and even if you're a person that has the disease, but you're kind of alone in the home, you know, one that has it, it can feel kind of lonely, even though you live with other people or you have a family that surrounds you.
Yeah,
So community is what I'm finding is really important, and someone that understands. Um, so I honor the fact that that has been started, because for me, the mental side of this, emotional side, if you
yeah,
will, is definitely worse than the physical.
yeah,
So, and even though they can kind of piggyback or walk hand in hand,
yeah.
have you found that being the similar experience with FSHD?
Yeah, I mean, I'm the only one that in my family with FS. Well, now my mother had it. She passed away almost 3 years ago.
Mm,
But yeah, you can feel or incredibly alone, even though I'm surrounded. I've got a wife who I love and my kids um, but the struggles that we experience are so in some ways very unique.
yeah.
And of course it can feel really lonely to to be going through it, even if you're surrounded by people that you love and that love you, or if you're alone.
Mm. Yeah, it's a difficult side of it for sure.
How about you, Tim? How do you experience it? Is that
How do I experience it?
yeah, you
Yeah, I feel that the struggle is like I don't. It's not always on the forefront of my mind, you know, the physical of it all. But then every once in a while, the dread maybe comes in, or you realize something sore hurts, or the limitation of a movement that wasn't so difficult before all of a sudden becomes more difficult. You start to notice certain things, and then it's like a reminder. Oh yeah, that's right. That's FSHD.
yeah,
You know, you kind of like move along in your day sometimes, like I'm just me, and then oh
right,
yeah, then I have this.
right,
Or I kind of use it to, like, my wife and I, we kind of treat FSHD like it's its own identity. Oh, that's just the FSHD.
yeah,
You know, like something dropped in the kitchen, I'm not even there. Oh, that must be the FSHD. You know, it's just the not so fun thing that lives in the house, like a roommate, you know, that
right,
doesn't clean up or whatever. So there are certain coping mechanisms, and like, you know, Amy prior to you talked about laughter too. You know, how she uses laughter in a way. But I am very interested in the mindfulness practice. I'm guilty of not being able to do it for an hour a day. I think at good stretches, I probably try to find, you know, 5 minutes a day to do some of it. Some of it, you know, I'm not as disciplined as I should be, because I think it would help me a lot.
yeah.
So how do you give advice to someone like me, who is like kind of committal but kind of not to the process, and to try to get them in a better practice?
So certainly you do not have to do it an hour a day. 5 minutes a day, if you do
Yeah.
it consistently, is a lot. And
Mm,
there are plenty of apps out there now. Sam Harris has an app called Waking Up, which is wonderful. There's the Headspace app, there's the Calm app, and the great thing is that there are guided practices that you can choose to do one that's 2 minutes long, 5 minutes long. You can meditate in different ways. You can do a walking meditation. A guided meditation. You can sit in silence.
mm,
Um, but even more important than that, I feel, is how do we relate to our thoughts and our feelings and our circumstances as they arise, and separating out what's in my control and what's not in my control. And if it's something that's already happening, like I'm feeling sad, right? And I notice that I'm feeling sad. And mindfulness practice cultivates that awareness, like, oh yeah, there's sadness there. What do we do? How do we react to that sadness? Do we pour gas onto the fire and say, I don't want to feel sad. I shouldn't feel sad. This means I'm going to be sad all the time. What can I do to get rid of this? That just makes it worse. Or we can recognize the sadness, and maybe we're feeling it in, like, in my heart or in your chest, or and you put your hand on your heart and you breathe into it and you recognize it and you say, can I be with this? Like, can I hold this? Like, imagine a crying baby. What do you do when you have a crying baby? You don't tell the baby to stop crying, or you don't ignore it. You pick it up and you hold it.
Right.
And if you could treat that sadness as it arises with that level of compassion, or at least practice that, that will be quite, that will transform your relationship to what you're feeling. And that is part of mindfulness practice. It's cultivating that awareness and acceptance and compassion. So it's not just about sitting and silently meditating. That's not the only thing that matters. Just doing that practice is mindfulness practice.
Yeah, it's a thought I heard or someone say when they're doing mindfulness, like you don't have to have an empty head, like no thought at all.
Yeah.
It's just how do you address the thoughts as they come in? Is that accurate?
Yes, exactly. The goal of mindfulness and meditation is not to have an empty head. Our minds think, our minds secrete thoughts like our mouths secrete saliva. It's just like that's the nature of the mind. And the mind is like a puppy, it's like reacting to every stimulus that's out there. And with the puppy, you're just constantly bringing it back over and over again. And you're not beating it. You're not telling the puppy not to be dog-like or to be puppy-like. You're expecting the puppy to be a puppy, but you just keep bringing it back over and over again, gently and firmly and consistently. And that's what we do with our minds. Like, we're sitting there, we're meditating, and then the thinking happens, and then you recognize thinking and you name it thinking, and you come back to your breath. And then 10 seconds later, another thought, and then you recognize that you're thinking, and then you come back. That's it. It's quite straightforward, but it's not about not thinking. That's not the purpose.
What's the experience we should feel before we start a time of our day in mindfulness? And then what do we expect to feel when we're done?
It's really important. That's a great question, because there's no like, the more important thing is checking in with, how do I feel now?
Mm-hmm.
And then you practice for 5 minutes, and then checking in with yourself, how do I feel now? There's no should in terms of how you should feel, because that's going to change every day. But I think over time, you'll notice after you practice that you'll sense that your nervous system is calmer, you feel a bit more regulated, more at ease. That doesn't mean that you're not going to have days where you practice and you are so distracted and you just feel the same level of distraction after, and that's okay. So can you practice being okay with the fact that you had a very distracted practice that day? It's not a linear thing. Like, we're imperfect creatures. It's all practice. Like it is with baseball, right? You're a baseball coach. Like, you're gonna have good days, and where you're just on the ball and you're connected, and you're gonna have days where you're just off.
Yeah.
But how do you relate? How do you respond to those off days? What do you tell your kids? I'm sure you don't beat them.
No, no, you're right. It's like, how do you still compete in your day when it's not your day?
Yeah.
You don't have all the things working like you want, but you still have to do what you have to do. I mean, that's like a life lesson, right? That's like beyond the diamond, which I try to sprinkle on them all the time. They're only like 12 and 14 years old, the teams I deal with, and try to sprinkle life lessons, and you mask it with baseball. And I steal a lot of stuff from from folks like you, and mindfulness is one of them, and that's us having them do breathing and before they come to the game. So I mean, part of our routine warm up for practice and before games is they have to do some mindfulness breathing. It might not be very long, but just something. Why am I here? How do I feel today? What am I prepared to do? And visualization comes in there, and we're doing that a little bit, knowing that they're 12 and 14 years old. You also keep all that in mind. And I'm not a master at it, so I do steal things and bring it. But I do know that there is a purpose for it, as in a positive purpose for mindful practice, that it can help. And I try not to be a hypocrite either, like you kind of said before. Like you try to keep going with it, and I'm not someone that would jump out and say, let me lead a group for mindfulness, but I'm definitely an advocate that says that there is a massive positive to doing it that helps you get to be positive, because I'm not a positive person by nature. So I need to practice at it. I need to work at it and surround myself with people that are more positive, or things that are more positive, and be conscious of that. So that's always my advice, for people trying to have a better mindset when it comes to FSHD. Before we let you go, David, where can people find out more about your practice? I know you said you had some patients that had FSHD, or other resources maybe that you could direct them to if they want to know more about what we were talking about.
So my website is called loveafterkids.com, because part of the work that I do is about helping people with relationships and parenting and relationships after having kids. So that's a way to read a bit more about me and to be able to contact me. In terms of the meditation, I think I love Sam Harris's Waking Up app, because he has talks, and also Practice, and Headspace is another great app. And part of the thing we're doing in the wellness group is we're putting together resources. And I know Jen put out a bunch of great resources in the article that she wrote in the Advocate.
Yep.
So that's also a good place to go. And anyone can reach out to me if they want, like, oh, can you point me to some resources, to some books, or meditation information. I'm happy to help.
Awesome. Thank you, David, for joining us today on this radiothon, and kind of getting my mind locked in a little more positive as I march on through the day today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Tim.